What's up, guys? And I want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. I'm your host, MJ, and you're now watching Let's Talk for a Minute. So as you guys probably already can tell from the title, we're going to be moving further along in my classic movie series. So we're going to go on to episode 5. And in episode 5, I want to talk about two particular films that I think that it's a highly much watch if you have not watched them. If you have not watched them, I highly recommend you add it to your list, no matter what time of the season or year it is. But you know that we are in the Halloween season, in the October season, the fall. But even outside of our fall season, I highly recommend you add it to your list, especially if you're a huge fan of the horrors. Definitely highly recommend you watch it. If you have watched it, I highly recommend that you go back and watch it just for the heck of it. Two films. The first film I want to talk about is the 1985 film, The Stuff. Now, the 1985 film, The Stuff, is pretty much about basically a town that basically is it's overrun and is being overrun and is overtaken by this type of, I don't know what would you call this? I don't know if it's a supernatural or some type of, or I guess we could say a sci-fi. So I think that's what it'd be. This movie, The Stuff, what it reminded me of basically was the film The Blob. I don't know if a lot of you guys know, but you guys remember the movie The Blob, where it looked like blood, but we knew it wasn't blood, but it was about basically the blob where it just took a start going all over the city and all over the town. This is what The Stuff reminded me of. The only difference is it was white, and it was basically like something that the people was consuming, that they were eating, some type of treat. I couldn't tell whether it was like some type of sweet cream or mushed up marshmallow cream or even some ice cream topping, that, you know, the filling that goes on the top of the cake. But that's what it was pretty much about. So what it was is it was a corporation, a business. Now they were doing experiments, and now they knew that the stuff, that's what it was called, The Stuff, that they knew it wasn't good and they knew it wasn't unhealthy for the people, and they knew that it would have a negative effect on the people. But what they still decided to do was push it out to the people. So they pushed it out to a town, and what happened was as the people started consuming the stuff, they started basically mutating or started transforming into like being controlled and start turning to a zombie-like people. So it's pretty much like I would say The Stuff would be like a sci-fi horror. But like I said, a knockoff version of the Blob, but it was still good. Now I'm not sure, I'm not correct. I think the Stuff came out before the Blob. Correct me if I'm wrong. Spam in the comments, let me know. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but I think the Stuff came out before the Blob. But if I'm wrong, make sure to correct me. But as I said, that's the kind of vibe that we get like the Blob. So overall, the film was good. The backstory was good. As I said, it's a sci-fi horror about this type of treat or sweet that people are eating, and then they start turning to like controlled zombies basically. And then you have a group of people. What it is basically there's a detective, and then there's a reporter, and then there's a young kid where his parents a young boy where his parents and his brother, they all get basically the rest of the town, they eat the stuff and they become consumed and they be possessed like a zombie-like. But they're basically it's just three characters: the detective and the reporter and the young boy, where they're running around trying to defeat and trying to stop and prevent the stuff from spreading across all the way across the world, because if it did, they knew what would happen, what the result would be. Does this ring a bell? You know, it kind of sounds similar, doesn't it? Kind of like what's going on right now. We have like, you know, the vaccinated versus the, you know, and the whole coronavirus, but, you know, just want to point that out. But anyways, The Stuff overall, it was good. Definitely it was a good performance. The cast, it was a very good job. As far as the production, the way it was put together, the theatrics and everything, it was awesome. Like I said, we gotta make sure, we gotta touch bases on this. Now, we gotta make sure that we can't confuse older films compared to the new films. Now, we have to understand that back then in a certain time frame, like in the 80s and under, 80s, 70s, 60s, and so on, that the evolution of film and everything is different now compared to back then. So we can't compare certain films nowadays compared to films back then. Of course, the technology and everything is going to be different. But as I said, we're talking about good classic films. The Stuff definitely is a highly recommended film. And I actually think that The Stuff, it went heavily underrated. I don't see a lot of people talk about the film, the 1985 film, The Stuff. Seeing how it is an actually classic cult horror film, and it's very, very good. The backstory is good and everything. As I said, when I remember as a young kid, when I first fell in love with The Stuff is when it's just that backstory really caught me. Is about the whole narrative with the antagonist was basically like we seen a version of the Blob, like this stuff where people consumed and all of a sudden they became basically like a zombie-like and controlled. And it was like this stuff. It was white, looked like marshmallows or icing topping cream or whatever, like the cream, the topping that go on the cake. But it was like it was moving on its own and had a mind of its own, so it could try to consume people itself. So that's why I got the Blob vibes from it. But overall, the movie was good. I highly recommend you guys watch it if you have not watched it. Now, the second film that I highly recommend as a must-watch for you guys, or I highly recommend that you guys add to your list of horror films. So if you are a major horror fan or not, even if you're not a major horror film, make sure you have your pen and papers whenever you're watching Let's Talk for a Minute, because I'm always going to be giving you guys good notes and good suggestions of movies to watch. The second film I want to talk about is the 1982 film, The Slumber Party Massacre. The 1982 film, The Slumber Party Massacre, pretty much is about it's a group of teenagers, teenage women, a group of teenage girls, where they decide to have a get-together sleepover where one of the teenagers, the teenager girl, the house that they're at, that her parents are gone for the weekend. And so that she has a small slumber party. Not no big slumber party, but just maybe like 4 or 5 girls. And it revolves basically around, it's a serial killer, but he goes around basically killing people. And what he does is he torments these girls at this summer party. And basically his main tool object, which I thought was very, very, very funny and hilarious, is that the main killer, the antagonist in this film, he was running around killing women, killing these girls, these young teenage girls, with a drill. Yes, I said it. The main antagonist in the Slumber Party Massacre, the 1982 film, The Slumber Party Massacre, the antagonist was running around killing people with a drill. And not just one of them small drills. You know them long extended drills where the drill bit part is like at least about a good 5 to 6 feet long, and then you have a long thing. Now, what I thought was hilarious about this is that this guy, the antagonist, that he literally was running around throughout the whole movie with this heavy, heavy drill. And I know it was heavy, but he's running around with this drill, and killing people with this drill, which I thought was so hilarious. But it was still a good film. It was very good, and I like the backstory of it. It's just that part about that specific part about the killer running around and killing people with this large, heavy drill was just so hilarious, because I know any person be like, man, I'm not about to be running around carrying this heavy ass drill trying to kill people with this heavy drill. I'm gonna have to come up with another type of instrument or type of tool to try to kill these people. But it was just so hilarious that he was running around killing people the whole movie with this drill, and I know he had to be tired carrying that drill around. But that's pretty much what the backstory of the movie about, basically the serial killer, this would fall under slasher. So this was a slasher film. This definitely would fall under the slasher genre of horror film. What do I think about the film? It was decent. It was fair. Of course, it wasn't a film that was majorly talked about. This is actually another film that I consider that basically was went undershadowed, basically went underrated. It's an underrated film, a horror film that I definitely think is a much watch, and you definitely should add it to your list of films that you want to watch. Okay, definitely. Doesn't matter if you watch them in October, if it's November, December, January, sometime next year, but I highly recommend adding it to your list. Now, if you guys can tell by today's episode, and pretty much a lot of my episodes, you see I tend to have a type of pattern that with the movies I predict to talk about. And in this one, 2 of these films were basically I would consider underrated horror films. The 1980 film, The Stuff, and also the 1982 film, The Slumber Party Massacre. They both, to me, were very, very highly underrated horror films, actually were good. I definitely think you should watch them if you have not watched them. If you have watched them, I highly recommend you just go back and watch it again. I guarantee you will appreciate you will appreciate the time frame back then, how the films were then compared to where they are now. You will appreciate them for what they were. As I said, that's pretty much what the whole film about. Basically, we just had that kind of like film where you just had an antagonist just running around, just tormenting people with this big, heavy-sized drill, which I know was so heavy, and I know he should have been exhausted. Now, the one issue I will point out with this film is that with this film, there was no plot, or shall I say, there was no reason. The story, I feel that the movie didn't give us a reason behind why the killer, the slasher killer, the serial killer in this film, why he was running around killing people and tormenting people with this big, heavy drill. I couldn't understand it whatsoever. And I know a lot of you that have seen it, the ones of you that have seen it, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. But just a quick spoiler that it's not going to give you a concrete detail. It's not even going to paint a small, vivid picture. It won't even give you a little hint and suggestion of why was this guy running around tormenting teenagers with this heavy drill. It just doesn't give us that. And I thought that because as I'm watching the film, I'm like, okay, when I went back to watch it again, and I'm like, okay, and it hit me. Because when I first watched it, I remember when I watched this film when I was younger, a young kid, a little young buck, I didn't see that. That's why I highly recommend some films that are old. I highly recommend go back and watch them because you will. I don't care how old the film was, but if you watch the film, I guarantee you when you go back and watch a film, you will see something or notice things that you didn't notice the first time. So that was one of the things I really noticed about the film is that it never painted a picture or explained to the viewers why this killer was running around killing these teenagers with this heavy, big, oversized drill. It didn't explain it, and I thought that was just weird and strange. So that was the one thing that I did want to point out about this film that I was a little displeased with, but I still liked the film overall, but I was just a little displeased that the writer or the director, producer, whoever was behind it, they didn't give us a picture of the reason, the backstory of why he was running around killing these teenagers. Now we know from a lot of franchises, horror franchises, such as Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, even some of the modern day ones like The Conjuring, the Nightmare on Elm Street. You know these franchises, they gave us a backstory or they gave us a reason in the films. They gave us a reason why each antagonist was doing what he was doing. But in this film, the 1982 film, the Slumber Party Massacre, it didn't give us that. And that was the only one thing I had to say about this. Other than that, the film overall was good. As I said, I thought it was just so hilarious, and I know it had to be exhausting, especially probably for the actor, to be running around with that drill all that time. I know, it's like, really? Like, if I was, I'm just saying, I'm not a serial killer, but if I was a killer, there's no way I'm gonna sit here. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, no, I don't have COVID. But if I was a killer, if I had to put myself in the shoes and I was a killer, I would not be running around. That would not be my tool of choice, to be running around with a drill, and that type of drill killing people. I'm just like, no, that it's not happening. Like, no, I'm not about to exhaust myself trying to run around and kill people with a big, heavy, oversized, big ass drill, okay? But that was all I have for that movie. So to wrap things up, like I said, both of these films I highly recommend, must watch, and they both, I think, are highly underrated films. The 1985 film, The Stuff, and the 1982 film, The Slumber Party Massacre. Both of them were very good films. If I had to give both of them rating, if I had to give a rating to The Stuff, I would give The Stuff overall, I would give it a 8.0 rating. If I had to give the Slumber Party Massacre a rating as well, I would give this film an 8.0 rating as well. So both of these films, The Stuff, the 1985 film, The Stuff, and the 1982 film, The Slumber Party Massacre, I would give them both a 8.0 rating. I think they both did a good job as far as just overall the backstory and how the flow of the story was going, and just it was that good thrill, that good jump, that what we wanted. It was just good. It's just that, you know, just that one thing what really got to me about the Slumber Party Massacre. It's just that the killer running around with that big oversized drill. That was just crazy and hilarious. And another thing, the thing I told you guys is about is just that I think that in the Slumber Party Massacre, that they did not reveal what was the reason why the killer was killing these teenagers. Now, in The Stuff, the 1985 film, The Stuff, it actually gave us a backstory, the reason what was the whole purpose of the stuff and why it was happening, but in the Slumber Party Massacre, it didn't. But that's all I have for you guys. I hope this was informative for you guys. As I said, I highly recommend you add these two films to your list. So until next time, I want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. Peace.